We don't want a 30-second countdown, do we?
We're live. No, we don't have a 30-second.
Okay, sorry about that.
You ready now?
Okay, absolutely.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back. And today we're going to be talking about how implicit memory is impacting your business.
Yes, indeed. So,
what's an implicit memory, I hear you ask? Oh, thank you for asking. So let's talk about that for just a second.
Mm-hmm.
This may be kind of a new concept, or we've heard implicit memory. What the heck is an implicit memory, and how could it possibly be impacting my business?
All right. So implicit memory is something you know without necessarily needing to think about it consciously. So explicit memory would be things you know, and you think about them. And implicit memory is just something you just know. And here's a great example.
Okay.
If you look outside and you notice that it's raining, it's taking my thing off my phone. If you look outside and you notice that it's raining, how do you know it's rain? How do you know that it's not dangerous? And how do you know that if you walk out into it, you'll get wet? So you don't have to consciously register, okay, that's water falling from the sky, and that means it's rain. You don't have to think about it. You just recognize it immediately and unconsciously. And that's because you have implicit memory that tells your brain that that's what it is, and most importantly, that it's not dangerous. So you would have learnt about rain at some point in your childhood, but you don't necessarily remember learning about it. Now, the key here is that implicit memory is also applies to everything else. So including the way we respond and react to things, our experiences of things. So when you see a person's expression, for example, your brain will refer to implicit memory to tell you what that expression means.
So implicit, I know this may sound a bit simplistic, but it's kind of almost like, for us, it's like our ancient memory that's back there. It's not ancient in terms of like predating us, but it's like what we learned or what we experienced, and this could go back to like pre-consciousness, or not consciousness, but it's like we experienced that kind of from day one, and it's what we learned, or it's what we experienced.
Yeah, I think the closest thing would be unconscious memory. So it's something we learned, not necessarily consciously learned, we learned through experience. And I think what you're probably thinking of is pre-verbal. So before we learn language, the brain is already learning what things are, what they mean, and forming that self-image and worldview. So then now, of course, all of us have different experiences throughout childhood, even siblings growing up in the same home with the same parents. And even if the parents are treating them the same, loving them the same and all of that, their internal experiences are different because there's so many variations on the moments in time that we live. So one person can see an expression. I know one that I wanted to mention is, let's say you're in a grocery store and you're standing in line at the checkout, and you look behind you and there's a person standing behind you and they have a certain expression on their face. Now, one person may look at that customer's expression and think, oh, they're cross with me because I've got too many items in the checkout thing, right? Another person may look at them and think, what's their problem? Why are they looking at me like that? And another person may think, shame, they're having a bad day. And yet another person may not even register that expression at all as meaning anything. And what makes the difference is in that split second, less than a split second, the brain of each person is referring to their implicit memories that are formed in childhood as to determine what I'm looking at right now, what does that mean?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So let's translate that for a moment into how is that impacting business?
Yes, I've got an excellent example.
I thought you might.
So I used to be really uncomfortable about charging for what I did. And I remember, there's lots of these examples, but one of them was I was doing a free talk at an event, and someone came to me afterwards and said, "Oh, how much is your book?" And I went, "No, you can just have it." I really cringed at the idea of asking someone to pay me for anything. And there are lots of different references that form a structure for a particular issue or a particular belief, a foundational pattern and that kind of thing. But one of the big ones for me, the first one I found, was as a child, we were, when my brother, my sister and I were children, we were taught that if you ask, you don't get. Which I know is the opposite to what a lot of people are taught. But in our case, it was about manners. It was about don't be rude and ask for something. You wait to be offered. So my little the unconscious part of my little brain took it literally. And so because as a child, you'd go, "Oh, could I have I was going to say a biscuit, but in America, cookie. Can I have a cookie?" And we go, the adult would go, "Well, no, now that you've asked, you can't have it. You wait to be offered." And so my brain, unconsciously, it doesn't make conscious sense at all. But what would happen is, as I thought about asking to be paid, my brain was referring to that so-called fact that if you ask, you don't get, and then putting stress chemicals into my system that created uncomfortableness, fear, a resistance to asking. And so I would go and do a singing gig, and then just wait to be paid. And like the owner of the pub was busy and they were serving customers and that. And I would think I should go up and ask, "Could you pay me?" But I just couldn't bring myself to do it.
Yeah, I think those are both really great examples. And it's like recognizing that the behavior doesn't make any maybe conscious logical sense, but and then being able to go through the process and find what those actual connections are, and then making the changes. I know that one that I found for myself, one that I was able to do the investigation work and be able to change, was that when I got into situations where there was some tension. It might have been dealing with a client who was upset. And I'm thinking about earlier iterations of business and earlier business that I had. If somebody was upset, and there was that look on their face of being upset, or if there was a little bit of a tense discussion in a negotiation or something like that, I know that my go-to was almost a paralysis, shut down, not being able to think straight, and that kind of thing. That was always my go-to. And, long story short, was able to go back and be able to find those implicit memory from my childhood, where I grew up in a family where I was the oldest of 5 children, and I was observing an overly stressed, frustrated parent who was just trying her best to make it. But that feeling, that little me that was back there, who was desperately trying to help but didn't know how, and it feeling frozen in the moment, and that implicit memory created a pattern that felt like, oh, in this situation, this is the response. This is the natural response that I should have. So it's like that example of rain. We learn at some point that going out into the rain means something. It might be, that you might have this joyful feeling about rain. You might feel amazing going out into the rain. I was recently had the opportunity, and this has been about a year ago, but that watching my grandson, who was probably about a year and a half at the time, experiencing puddles for the first time, so he was like experiencing a rain puddle for the first time. And it was just like this, watching him and the curiosity and that magical moment and being able to stomp in the middle of a puddle. And it was just interesting to watch that creation of an implicit memory in real time. So, kind of back to my situation, and everybody's experience in that moment may vary, but my experience being the oldest child in the family, feeling, again, there's a lot of other structure and a lot of other memory that was involved in that paralysis feeling. But, that's just kind of an example of how something that seems completely inane or unrelated, and how could something that happened maybe when I was 2 or 3 really be having an impact in this moment, with the adult me in the middle of a negotiation, etc.
Absolutely. And just to clarify, you weren't the oldest of 5 children at 2 or 3 years old. just in case anyone's thinking, wait a minute, that doesn't add up.
Okay, but I was the oldest of 5 children in as a
6
5
years or so.
Well,
4 children.
4 children. That's 5. 4 children in 5 years. So I'm
the other one came
later.
later.
Absolutely. But it was a bit of a handful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so the key here is to recognize that our reactions and our experiences of things in business and in life in general aren't objective, and they are not all conscious. In fact, most of it is not conscious. Just like as you're looking around you, wherever you are right now in the room, your brain is recognizing things without your conscious engagement, and that is happening all the time with experiences, with people, with you get an email or you get a comment on a post or something like that. Your brain, the unconscious part of your brain, is checking the implicit memory and then producing chemicals that create the feelings before your conscious mind even registers it at all. And then the conscious mind interprets, oh, this means that someone is judging me, or whatever that is. And that's why different people respond differently to different things, to the same thing, sorry. Different people respond differently to the same events and the same experiences. So one person gets a negative comment on a post and feels judged, or feels frustrated, or feels unfairly accused, or feels hurt. Another person could get the same comment and think that person doesn't know what they're talking about, or they could not even register it as a negative thing at all. It all depends on those implicit memories.
And I know that, maybe a next logical question is, what do I do about that?
Right.
How do I make some kind of a change to an implicit memory that I can't even remember?
Yes. And so the answer is that's obviously a very big topic. And we have a free masterclass that you can attend, and you can learn about exactly how these are created, how to find them, and how you can change them. So the link is in the description. So if you click on that, you can register it, and you can find out more about that. And it's all based on neuroscience. So we share the some of the scientific background behind it as well.
Yeah, no, and it is a freeing and empowering experience to be able to find these links, make the changes, and then watch how things are starting to naturally change, naturally improve in your life, in your business. And it's just an absolutely fascinating process.
Wonderful. I think that's it for today then. We will see you again next time.
All right. Bye for now.
Oh, the mouse is not.